All right, so I brought in this Jack Kirby page, and I am stealing colors directly from it. And I'm doing that by staying on my flat color layer, right, which is right here. And simply holding down the option for the different color options. Now these are old comic book colors, so there actually isn't that much variety. They only had something like 26 different colors they could choose from in the oldest comics that weren't just black and white. And then if I want to change a color, I select it with my magic wand. Actually, I want to select this one, I think. And then I go to my flat color layer and I just drop it in. Right. And then if I'm looking for the next, you see how that flatting color layer really makes it easy to select. I can hold down Option with my paint bucket and find the right tones to use. And then for the star, let's see, maybe something like this. Magic wand, select it, go to flat color layer, drop it in. Now there's no reason you need to keep your flat colors as diverse as your flatting colors. So if I like that orange, maybe I want to use that orange around the eyes as well. But I like to let my weird flatting colors influence my flat color choices somewhat. And so instead of this kind of ugly poop brown, I might choose something a little bit more unusual from the Kirby influence. And try a few things out. That's a little zombie-ish, but.
Are you trying to make it look like a zombie? That one, no. Yeah. Not that one, no. Like under the rock. The one that's under the rock.
The one that's under a rock.
That page, right?
So
under
this?
That. Not that. The slab behind it. Try that.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. Now what's neat about doing this from the scan of Kirby's work is there's infinite variety in here of lights and dark versions of that. So you're getting what are called chromatic grays. And so you can even get really dark versions. But you see how that's better than what I had before? All right. Because choosing these colors correctly really does matter. It does make a big impact. All right. So I'm almost done with my flats here. I'm going to use my magic wand, select all these bright yellows, go back to my paint bucket, go to my flat color, find the color I want to use, drop it in. You can keep trying slightly different variations. Oh, that's nice. And now for the nose. Now the beauty of digital coloring is this could all change. You know, at any time I can change my mind and change the colors, do something with a different layer. For now, I just want you to play with them. Really kind of experiment with all the options you have. And by locking the right layers, it will keep you from making mistakes. There we go. So now this is what my flat colors look like. Right? I just need to fill in the halo and the eyes. But so far, I'm liking those. I'm not sure what to do with the eyes. I want it to look kind of monstrous, so maybe I'll do kind of a bright orange. But these are just flat colors. We'll go into some of the more interesting effects we can do with that once we have our flats filled in. So if I pick this is called a 100% red in comics. It's 100% red ink and 100% yellow ink overlapped on itself. So that's pretty darn bright. And I might use that as well, or something close to it for the little halo underneath. Or I might just go for a yellow or an orange. Maybe this orange that's in this thing in the background. I'm a little obsessed with old comic color. So much so I'm going to show you how to color separate your colors so you get the kind of dot effects that are possible. But it also shows you even with the limited color of comics, there are some pretty good solutions they came up with. Yeah. All right. So now I've got my flats. And once you can turn your flatting image off and it doesn't affect your coloring, you know you've filled in your flats. You have successfully killed whitey completely, right? And then you can see how those colors look on a gray background. And you can see how those colors look on a black background. And you can make decisions from there about how much more to do. Now, some illustrations look great with just flat color. You might not need much at all. So I'm going to turn on the gray because I kind of like to do this next step with gray turned on. I'm going to save it, and I'll just remind you, not of that. Let's see, remind you of this thing. So this is flat color. Now you have to decide, do I want to add kind of tones and dimension within those flats? And this is now what we call duotone color. So what I do, there's a few different ways. What I do is I actually just duplicate my flat color layer. So Command J. And then I'll lock my original flat color layer so it can't get altered. But then immediately with my flat color layer, I will first go to Image Adjustments. This is on my duplicate. Go to Levels, and I will brighten up all the midtones. Now, automatically, I've made highlights, right? And now I want to use my eraser, and I'm going to rename this Duotone, which means two colors, right? Highlights. So now I'm splitting my flat color into lights and darks, right? But so far I don't have any darks. I just have the lights and I have the flat local color. So first let me build my highlights. How am I going to do that? I'm going to do that by erasing away the shadows. So I'm going to use my eraser. I'm going to keep it at 100% hardness. Pretty large. I could do this with my lasso too. This is what's called cut edge duotone, like animation. Really clean shadow shapes. So if I do something like this on the wings, cut away where I think there should be shadow, and then just delete. You see that? Now what I'll also do is I'll take my flat color layer and I'll duplicate it. And on the other copy, I'll do the exact opposite. I'll say Image Adjustment, Levels, and I'll take the midtones to the other side, darker. But at the same time, I'm going to go and desaturate them. Go to Hue Saturation and take the saturation down. Because when light or dark is added to a color, just like in painting, when you add white paint or black paint to a color, it not only darkens or lightens the color, it also takes its saturation down. So these I call my duotone shadows. So I have duotone highlights and duotone shadows. And they're both just alterations of the local flat color. So now I'll have those shadows turned on. I'm going to lock those for the time being and just erase away from my highlights using cut edge. So if I know at the edge of the head here, I want to cut that away and let shadow come through. At the bottom of the eye, I want shadow to come through. Definitely on the underside of the hat, right? I want shadow to come through, but not everywhere. And I can use Option and refine my selections before I delete. These little dents in the hat, I want shadow to come through. Bottom of the star, I want shadow to come through. Now this has a lot to do with your inking too. The more inking you have, the less you need to worry about all this coloring stuff. Because your inking's doing a lot of these color variations already for you. And if you have solid line work, you're not trying to use this to save your image. You're trying to use this to enhance your image. And I like that. To me, it takes off a lot of the pressure of coloring. You also don't need to be perfectly within the lines because it's only the colors that I'm erasing. I'm not adding any color. So I'm always going to be working with what I've already designed. So inside the antlers here, it's okay if I select outside of the antler. That's no big deal because it's only going to take away from what's already there. And if you erase too much, it's no big deal. You still got your flat color layer underneath everything. Now this is all cut edge because I'm using my lasso or I'm using a really hard eraser and I'm just cutting away so that the distinction between light and dark is a crisp, clean edge. In animation, it's called cell shading. In illustration and digital coloring, it's called cut edge duotone. But what if I don't want that everywhere? Well, I could use a soft edged eraser. And I can gradate the difference. So let's go into those eyes. What if I want those eyes to look creepier still? Here I need to do something along the edge here. Get a little shadow there. Maybe under the eyes, get a little shadow there. Maybe right here. So people get really hung up on coloring, thinking it's really difficult, but honestly, a little bit of coloring, especially duotone, goes a long way. It doesn't take a lot to have a big effect. So generally, for most of my graphic work, I'm happy with just cut edge duotone. I don't need to go beyond that too much. You can even draw your own kind of shapes with it. You know, I can make little fur-like shapes.